Do you think you know what hard work is? Do you believe you understand exhaustion, fear, or injustice? All of this probably seems distant to you, like an example from an old textbook. But try to imagine every single day of your life is an endless, sticky, humiliating existence where your every movement belongs to someone else. You are a wagon driver in the American South, a black slave with not only no future of your own, but not even the right to be tired, to complain, or to hope. But before you get comfortable, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is there. I'm genuinely curious to see who has joined us. Now, settle in and get ready. We're starting. You wake up while the sky is still black and silent. Long before the first fingers of sunlight think about touching the ragged fields. The cold feels like a living thing, worming its way under your patched blanket, biting at your toes and hands as if it resents you for stealing another breath. Morning is not an event in your world. It is a command, a demand, an unspoken threat. There is no such thing as sleeping in. You do not know the taste of lingering in bed or the luxury of a lazy stretch. The morning starts not when you are rested, but when the bell clangs or the overseer's voice cracks through the thin wooden walls of the slave cabin. You sleep in your clothes, if you can call them that, because they are never really clean and because there is no point in taking them off just to put them back on in the dark. The mattress is straw, if you are lucky, but mostly it is just the hard earth softened only by your exhaustion. Your dreams, if you are allowed any, are fractured and nervous things. You never dream of freedom, because to dream is to remember that you are not free. Instead, your mind runs over the same worries every night. Will the wheel crack? Will the mule throw a shoe? Will master notice a scratch on the harness? You wake up already tired from answering questions you do not want to ask. Before the day has even properly begun, you know what you must do. Every morning is a copy of the one before. No one asks you if you are ready. No one wonders if you are ill or too worn out from yesterday. Sickness is just another word for weakness, and weakness is punished with the whip, or worse, with more work. Your body has learned not to rebel. You move because you must. Outside, the world is silent, except for the distant muttering of animals and the low voices of other slaves who are also climbing from their pallets. You listen for the footsteps of the overseer. Some mornings, if he is in a foul mood or has already started drinking, he will be loud, barking at anyone who moves too slow, threatening those who seem too quick. Other mornings, he stalks quietly, eager to catch someone idle so he can make an example. You splash a little water on your face from the wooden bucket outside the cabin. It is icy cold, but it wakes you up faster than any sunrise. There is no soap, but it does not matter. You are never truly clean. You look at your hands, cracked and stained with dirt that never washes out. They do not feel like your own. They feel like tools, like parts of the wagon you drive or the horses you harness. Breakfast is a concept for the rich. For you, it is nothing but a small hunk of cornbread, sometimes a cup of buttermilk if the kitchen is feeling generous. Most days you chew quickly, not even tasting it, just filling your belly enough to keep your legs moving. Your teeth ache, but you do not mention it. You do not mention anything that can be seen as complaint. You listen for the sound of the stable, for the shuffle of hooves, and the creak of the barn door. This is your sign that it is time to go, time to begin the day's real work, time to become invisible in your usefulness. Some days you wish the wagon would collapse, or that the road would open up and swallow you. Other days you wish for nothing at all, because hope is more dangerous than hunger. The sky starts to pale at the edges, promising another day of sweat and commands. You feel your heart beat, not with anticipation, but with dread so familiar it has become a kind of numbness. You remind yourself that you must be careful, that you must not give anyone a reason to notice you more than necessary. Invisibility is your only shield. You head toward the stable, your breath visible in the cold air, your hands already aching from the promise of work. You do not say goodbye to anyone because nobody goes anywhere. You simply vanish from one misery to the next, day after day, without end. You are the driver of the wagon. The morning belongs to your owner, your body, your labor. The morning is not yours. It never was. You do not choose your morning. You wait for it, the way a prisoner waits for the footsteps in the hall. The world outside the stable is gray and soft with mist, but you have no time to notice beauty. Beauty is for people who own their days. You stand straight, eyes down, already making yourself smaller before you are seen. The master's voice arrives before his body. Sometimes it is sharp and clear, slicing through the barn like a whip. Sometimes it is dull, lazy, like he has barely remembered you exist. Both are dangerous, but in different ways. You learn quickly that a quiet command can be worse than a shouted one. Quiet means he expects to be obeyed before he finishes speaking. Good means he wants everyone else to know he owns you. Today, the master is irritated. You can tell by the hurried click of his boots on the frozen ground, by the way the overseer stands straighter at his approach. You make yourself part of the wall, hands folded, eyes low. Even when he talks about you, he does not talk to you. Take the wagon down to the river, load up the barrels, and mind the barrels. Last time one was leaking, and I do not want to see that again. You say, "Yes, sir," in a voice as flat as the Mississippi itself. You do not say that the barrels are old, that the wagon creaks, that last time the road was half mud and half hope. You do not say that the leak was not your fault. Responsibility does not flow uphill. You are at the bottom, and everything that drips falls on you. He has a list in his hand, or maybe it is just a folded piece of paper. It does not matter. Lists are for people who can read them. You have learned to remember every detail, every little command, because if you forget, you pay with your back. After the river, You go to the mill, pick up the flour, then to the kitchen, deliver the sacks, then come back and help with the timber. It is not a suggestion, not a request. It is the shape of your day, carved out for you by someone who will never lift a sack in his life. The overseer repeats the orders, just in case you dared not to listen. He leans in, his breath sour, his hand never far from his stick. You heard the master, boy, and do not come back with anything missing or broken or late. There is a threat in every syllable, but it is so routine you barely notice it. You are used to living at the bottom of a well, with the water rising every day. The other slaves glance at you from under their brows, but say nothing. There is nothing to say. Today, the master is angry at you. Tomorrow, it will be one of them. The wheel turns, and you are always underneath it. You check the wagon, running your hands over the wood. You try to see it with his eyes, looking for any flaw, any loose board, any sign of wear. You know that if you miss something, he will not miss it. The horses stand restlessly in their stalls, ears flicking, eyes rolling. They know your touch. You are gentle with them, not because you love them, but because you are both prisoners of the same man. Their breath steams in the air, mixing with yours. The master's children sometimes come out to watch you. They are never alone, always with their mother or a nurse or the overseer. They point and laugh, or sometimes stare with blank, cold eyes. You are as much a part of the landscape to them as the fence or the well. You are something to be used, nothing more. The first order is always the same: obey, and then obey again. And when you have finished, be ready to obey the next. You stand in the half light, listening for every sound, measuring every word. You are not trusted, but you are depended upon. If you fail, you will be punished. If you succeed, you will be given more to do. You do not ask questions. Questions are for people with choices. You accept the orders, tuck them into your memory like stones in your pocket, and go to work. If the day is good, you will not see the master again until supper. If the day is bad, you will see him at every turn, and each meeting will be another stone added to your burden. You hitch the horses, checking the straps twice, even though your fingers are numb. The master stands nearby, arms crossed, watching you like a hawk watches a mouse. You make no mistakes, or at least you pray none are visible. When he finally turns away, it is not relief you feel, only a release of tension that will come back the next time he calls your name. The orders are clear, the day is set. You are the driver of the wagon, and the master's word is your sunrise and sunset. You begin to move, slow and careful, wishing only that today will pass without disaster. You have no power except to obey, and you will use it because that is all you have. You know the wagon better than you know yourself. Its splintered boards and patched wheels are as familiar to you as your own cracked hands. Before you can set out, before you can even imagine leaving the yard, you must prepare everything perfectly. The price of a mistake is pain, and the cost of haste is misery. You start with the wheels. They are stubborn things, always threatening to wobble or stick. You crouch beside them, pressing your fingers into the caked mud that cakes every spoke. You check each bolt, each joint. The cold makes the metal sting, but you keep working, feeling for looseness, for that faint shiver that means something is about to give way. If a wheel fails on the road, it will be your hide that pays for it, not the wagon's. The memory of old stripes across your back reminds you to check again. You fetch the grease pot, a dented tin you keep hidden at the back of the barn. The grease is thick, yellow, smelling faintly of spoiled fat. You scoop it with your fingers, working it into the axles, the hinges, the places where the wood and iron grind against each other. The grease is supposed to make the wagon run smoother, quieter, but mostly it just leaves your hands slick for the rest of the day. You wipe them on your shirt, which is never clean anyway. Next is the harness. The leather is old and cracked, chewed in places by rats during the winter. You run your hands along every strap, pulling, twisting, testing for weakness. Once, last summer, a harness broke on the main road and the wagon went sideways into the ditch. You were blamed for it, though you had pointed out the weakness days before. The master does not hear what he does not want to hear. Now you fix what you can and pray over what you cannot. The horses are restless in their stalls. Their eyes roll white in the dim light. Their hooves shift and stamp, impatient to be moving or just anxious, because they have learned the world is not a safe place. You whisper to them, calling each by name, names given by the master, never by you. Still, you use them gently, as if they were old friends. You pat their necks, check their shoes for loose nails, make sure their mouths are not too sore but for the bit. Harnessing the horses is a dance, one you have practiced 1,000 times. The straps must be tight, but not cruel. The bit must sit just right in the mouth. The traces must be secure, or the whole wagon will tip. You move quietly, efficiently. Your breath makes little clouds in the cold, and the horses blow back, warm and damp. You feel, just for a second, almost human, working with another living creature, not just for the profit of someone else. But then the overseer's shadow falls across the door. He watches you work, not with respect, but with suspicion, as if you might sabotage the wagon just to spite him. You keep your eyes down, your hands busy. You know the overseer is looking for something to punish, anything. A slow movement, a missed buckle, a single sign of laziness. You make sure to look twice at everything, and when you finish, you step back and nod so he can inspect your work. He walks around the wagon, kicking the wheels, tugging at the harness. He grunts, dissatisfied, though he finds nothing wrong. It is the ritual of authority. He must show that he is in charge, that you are always one mistake away from the whip. You wait silently until he turns away. When the inspection is over, you climb up onto the seat. The wagon creaks under your weight, and the horses shake their heads, ready but wary. You look back at your work one last time, scanning for anything that might go wrong. You have seen men punished for less than a loose bolt or a missing strap. The memory of those punishments sits heavy on your shoulders. There is no room for pride in your labor. Everything you do is expected, and anything less is a sin. Yet beneath the monotony and fear, there is a sliver of stubbornness. If the wagon runs well, if the horses are uninjured, if the job is done right, then at least you have denied them the pleasure of finding fault. Your hands sting from the cold and the grease. Your stomach is already starting to ache with hunger, but there is no time for food, not even the poor fare that passes for breakfast. You pull your coat tighter, though it does little against the chill. The day will be long, and your comfort is not a concern for anyone. The master appears again, his voice sharp. Get going. You are wasting daylight. You nod, clicking your tongue at the horses, starting the slow roll toward the gate. The wagon rattles, the harness groans, but everything holds for now. You have done your job, at least for the next few miles. You glance once more at the sky, searching for any sign of mercy, but the clouds are blank and gray. There will be no kindness today. You set your eyes on the road ahead, shoulders braced against the coming hours, and drive into the morning, the weight of your labor already heavy on your back. You have learned that every load is heavier than it looks. The barrels, the bales, the sacks, they all seem innocent enough at a glance, but once you touch them, try to lift them, their true weight reveals itself like a secret meant only for your bones. Sometimes it feels as if the master chooses the heaviest things just to see if you will buckle. Today, the load is barrels for the river and sacks of flour for the kitchen. Each barrel is half as tall as you and twice as stubborn, filled with something that sloshes and leaks if handled wrong. The wood is rough, splintered at the edges, ready to dig into your palms and tear your shirt. You have no gloves. You have never had gloves. Your hands are your tools, and they are punished for it daily. There is a method to loading, but no mercy. The barrels go first, rolled one by one from the shed, wobbling on their rims, threatening to escape and crash. You brace your shoulder against each one, grunting as you push it into place on the wagon bed. Sometimes another slave helps, but not always. Everyone is busy, and you are expected to manage alone if you must. The overseer watches, occasionally offering a lazy insult about your strength or your pace. If you move too fast, you are careless. If you move too slow, you are lazy. There is no right speed, only the illusion of choice. The sacks of flour come next, pale and limp, but heavy as wet sand. You lift them with your back, not your arms. There is no other way. The white dust coats your shirt, clings to your skin, mixes with the sweat that starts to bead despite the chill. If a sack splits, the loss will be counted against you. Even if the fabric was rotten or chewed by rats, it is your fault, your problem, your suffering. Sometimes the master decides at the last minute to send something extra, tools for the blacksmith, crates for the store, or even, on rare and awful days, passengers. You have loaded crates of chickens, cages of squawking pigs, baskets of eggs that crack with the smallest jolt. You have even been made to load the sick, the old, the helpless, who must be moved from one place to another without comfort, wrapped in rags, staring at you with empty eyes. When the wagon is nearly full, you must tie everything down. The ropes are rough and frayed, cutting into your hands as you pull them tight. You have learned a dozen knots, all invented out of necessity and desperation. If the load shifts, the wagon could tip. If the ropes come loose, you will be blamed. So you double check, triple check, crawling over the cargo like a cat, listening for the creak that means something is not settled. The overseer likes to point out your mistakes as if you are blind. That one is crooked. That one is loose. You call that tied down? He never helps. He just stands by the fence, stick in hand, daring you to talk back. You do not. You keep your mouth shut and your head down, saving your breath for lifting and tying. By the time the wagon is loaded, your shirt is soaked through and your back aches. Your hands throb, cut by splinters and raw rope. The flour dust cakes at the corners of your eyes. You do not complain. There is no one to listen, and complaining only brings more trouble. Sometimes you wonder if the load will finally be too much, if one day your body will refuse, your muscles will seize, and you will collapse beside the wagon. But every time you stand, because the alternative is worse. The master is not interested in weakness. If you cannot work, you are disposable, replaced in a heartbeat by someone younger, stronger, or just more desperate. The horses snort and stamp, shifting under the weight. You pat their necks, whispering encouragement you do not feel. The road ahead is long and rough, but first you must survive the weight on your own shoulders. When all is finally in place, the overseer gives the wagon a shove, testing your knots, your stacking, your care. If nothing falls, if nothing shifts, you are allowed to climb up. If something moves, you must start again, no matter how tired, no matter how late the hour. It is a ritual of humiliation as much as inspection. Before you go, you take a moment to stretch your back, roll your shoulders. It does not help. The ache is permanent now, a part of you as much as your skin. You tie the last knot, climb onto the seat, and wrap the reins around your hands. The load is ready. You are not. But the road will not wait, and neither will the master. With a cluck of your tongue, you signal the horses, and the wagon lurches forward, heavy with the day's burdens. You move out of the yard, already dreading the miles ahead, the ruts and the stones, the possibility that something will break, that something will be lost. But you keep going, because that is the only thing you are allowed to do. The weight is not fussed on the wagon, it is on you, always, and it is never light. The wagon begins to rattle and groan as soon as it leaves the yard, every board and bolt voicing a complaint you are not allowed to utter. The horses lean into their traces, heads low, hooves thudding in a tired rhythm that matches the pounding in your temples. The world outside the plantation fence is not any kinder, but at least its cruelties are honest. Mud, dust, sun, stones, holes, all with their own blunt intentions. The road is not really a road at all, but a gash in the earth, churned by countless wheels and hooves and boots, dried into ridges and troughs that threaten to jostle the wagon apart with every yard. When it rains, the ground turns to glue. When it is dry, the dust rises in choking clouds, coating your tongue, your teeth, your eyelashes. You have swallowed enough dirt to plant a garden in your own gut. The dust grits between your teeth and settles in your hair, making you taste the road for hours after you have left it. As the sun climbs, the day begins to sweat. The heat does not creep, it leaps, thick and heavy, pressing against your chest and neck until your shirt clings like another skin. In the high summer, the sun burns so hot it seems to boil the sweat on your brow before it even forms. In winter, it is the wind that torments you, slicing through your rags and burning your ears. There is no season of comfort. The only changes are in what kind of pain the day offers. You have to keep one eye on the road, one on the wagon, and the last imaginary eye on the world around you. The wagon lurches in and out of holes, sometimes so deep the barrels shift and the horses panic. You learn to brace yourself for every rut, every unexpected rock, and to hope the cargo stays put. If something falls or cracks, it will be your fault, no matter how many times you warned of loose boards or bad wheels. The horses trust you, and you trust them, because trust is the only currency the road accepts. A nervous tug on the reins, a sharp word, a pat on the neck. These are your language, spoken quietly, because the world is listening for mistakes. The horses snort, foam gathering at the corners of their mouths, their flanks shining with sweat long before the sun is halfway up. The dangers of the road are more than just the road itself. Every bend could hide a threat. Sometimes it is a snake coiled in the grass that sends the horses shying. Sometimes it is a fallen branch or a rotted log blocking your path. Sometimes, worse, it is a stranger on the road, watching from the trees or standing silent by the ditch. Most white men ignore you, but not all. Some are drunk, some are angry, some just bored enough to remember that they can ruin your day for no reason at all. There are stories of wagons waylaid, of drivers beaten for a look or a word, of cargo stolen or destroyed just to see a slave punished later. You keep your head down, your voice quiet, your answers shorter than a shadow. If a white man hails you, you stop. If he asks a question, you answer in yes, sir, no, sir, I do not know, sir, whether you know or not. The wrong answer is always your fault. Sometimes you pass another wagon, another driver as worn and wary as you. You might meet eyes for a heartbeat, a flicker of silent understanding passing between you, a recognition of suffering, a warning to keep going. There is never time to speak. Conversation is a luxury, and a dangerous one at that. All the while, the sun keeps climbing, the dust keeps rising, and the wagon keeps complaining. Your muscles ache from the constant jolt and sway. You can feel the strain in every part of your body, from your jaw clenched against the bumps, to your hands tight on the reins, to your feet braced against the floorboards. It is a slow, grinding torture stretched out over hours, made worse by the knowledge that there is no relief waiting at the end, only another load, another road, another day exactly like this one. Every now and then, you pass through a patch of shade, and the temperature drops for a moment, a tiny mercy gone before you can notice it. You try not to think about water, but your mouth is dry, your throat raw. If you are lucky, you might have a gourd tied under the seat with a mouthful of warm, stale water. If not, you keep going anyway, because stopping is not an option. Sometimes the road crosses a creek, and you take the chance to let the horses drink, their heads dipping, their sides heaving with relief. You watch the water and remember the stories you have heard of people running away, following the creeks north, never coming back. For a second, you let yourself imagine stepping into the water and walking away, but the thought dies before it can bloom. There are too many eyes, too many punishments, and too little hope. The road stretches ahead, endless and uncaring. The dust and heat and danger are not obstacles, they are the rules of your life. You obey them because you must. You endure because there is no other choice. You drive on, the wagon shuddering beneath you, the sun burning above, the world around you always ready to add a little more weight to your load. You know every horse by name and temperament, though none of those names are yours to give. Some are gentle, some stubborn, some carry a trace of meanness, but all of them, like you, have been broken to the bit and the whip. Over the years, you have learned to read their moods better than your own, for a horse's mood can mean your safety or your suffering. The horses start each day nervous, ears twitching, skin flinching beneath harness and leather. The world for them is one of sudden slaps, sharp tugs, and the threat of exhaustion just as real as it is for you. They have known only labor and discipline, with every meal earned by miles traveled and every rest rationed by the overseer's patience. You watch for signs of trouble, a rolling eye, a restless foot, a snort that's too sharp. Sometimes a horse will sense danger before you do, a snake in the grass, a wheel ready to crack, the smell of a stranger on the wind. You trust those warnings. When a horse shies, you know better than to blame it for cowardice. After all, you flinch too, just not in ways the master cares to notice. Every command to the horses is a negotiation. Too gentle, and they ignore you. Too harsh, and they might panic. You grip the reins, feeling the tremors of their muscles in your hands, your arms as much an extension of their backs as of your own will. With your voice, you coax them forward, quiet and low, not so much encouraging as reassuring. Loudness brings fear, Loudness brings memories of pain. You have learned that lesson together. Sometimes, when you stop by a creek or beneath a rare shade tree, you rub a horse's neck, whispering to calm it or yourself. Easy now, girl, easy. You wish someone had ever spoken those words to you and meant them. The horses blow hot breath against your sleeve and flick their ears, soothed for a moment by the gentle attention. You are both grateful for brief softness, however fleeting. The harness is another burden. Leather straps bite into the horse's flesh, leaving scabs and scars. You try to pad the worst spots with scraps of cloth or moss if you can find it, but there is never enough. A horse that pulls up lame or bleeds from the harness is your responsibility, and the overseer will remind you with every word and every blow. If a horse is injured badly enough, you may have to watch it be put down, shot, left in the sun, replaced by another whose life will be measured in the same way, by miles and loads, not by years or kindness. In the worst heat, you pause to let the horses breathe, though it is more for them than for yourself. You wipe the foam from their mouths, check their hooves for stones, try to brush away the biting flies. These small acts of care are as close as you come to rest. You hope the master never notices your wasted time, for he would surely call it laziness or softness. But you know that a dead horse means a ruined day, or worse, and you will do what you must to keep them moving. You remember the one horse, old Joe, who had a stubborn streak as wide as the river. He would balk at every bridge, roll his eyes, and back away from a puddle as if he had memories of drowning in another life. One day, the master lost patience, came out with the whip, and struck until Joe collapsed in the traces, trembling, foam flecked, refusing to rise. After that, Joe never pulled straight again. You still think about that horse, the way his spirit went out like a candle, leaving behind a body that did what it was told, but never again tried. The young horses are wild, afraid of shadows and the sound of wagon wheels. The old ones move slow and steady, grateful for any moment of stillness. You see your own story in theirs. First the fear, then the resignation, then the careful economy of effort that keeps you from breaking all at once. Some days the horses save you. They steady themselves when the wagon tilts. They sense when a rut is too deep or a hill too steep and adjust their stride to keep you upright. They do not know how much you rely on them, but you do. You have learned not to trust people, but you trust a horse who will not bite unless he is hurt, who will not run unless he is scared. In that, you are alike. At the end of the day, you rub down their legs, pick out their hooves, speak soft nonsense to them. They breathe slow and heavy, eyes half closed. You wish someone would care for your aches in the same way, but you settle for tending the horses. Sometimes it feels like the closest thing to love left in your life. A tired hand, a gentle word, a promise to be back in the morning, as long as the world allows. You step away from the wagon, your back singing with pain, your hands trembling from effort. The horses blink at you as tired and sore as you are, and together you face another dawn, another day's work, another set of roads to travel. You are not free, but neither are they. You hold on to the little comfort you can in the space between orders and punishments, in the brief, quiet understanding between man and animal. Your day as a driver is not only about steering the wagon and coaxing tired horses down roads built by people who will never walk them. You are also the warden of everything piled in the back: barrels, sacks, tools, the goods of other people's comfort and wealth. Once you leave the plantation yard, the cargo is no longer just property. It is a test, a threat, a burden you must carry as carefully as you carry your own skin. You check the load again and again, your mind a loop of worries. Each jolt of the wagon could shift a barrel. Each bump could loosen a rope. There is no peace in the ride, no such thing as letting your mind wander. You listen, always, for the sound of something sliding, something tearing, something about to break. The only thing the master hates more than wasted time is wasted money, and every item on your wagon has already been counted, measured, and valued, except for you. When you drive through the fields or the woods, there is always the chance that something will snag the cargo. Low branches, hidden roots, even the sticky, grabbing mud threaten to snatch a sack or rattle a barrel until the bung pops loose and the day's profit leaks into the dirt. If you lose anything, you know the punishment will come quick and certain. The overseer does not care about your explanations. You should have tied it tighter. You should have driven slower. You should have seen that rock. It will always be your fault, even when it is not. There are days when, even as you pass through the world at the bottom rung, the world above you finds new ways to remind you of your place. Sometimes it is a neighbor's field hand who tries to snag a little from your load, eyes darting, hands quick, hoping to feed his own hunger at your risk. Sometimes it is just the stray dog that smells something worth chewing, and you must shout or throw a stone to keep it away, knowing full well that even the dog's hunger is more innocent than your own. Then there are the white men you pass along the road, their curiosity lazy and dangerous. They watch the wagon with a cold, bored interest, as if hoping to spot a flaw in your work or a chance to stir trouble for the fun of it. Some of them want to test your fear, asking what you carry, peering over the edge, sometimes just to see you flinch. You learn quickly never to argue, never to laugh, never to show that you notice at all. Every question is a trap. The safest answer is the quietest one, and you practice invisibility as a kind of religion. But the real challenge is not the open road or even the watchful eyes of strangers. The greatest threat is the small, creeping failures: ropes that fray, knots that slip, wood that cracks under weight. You feel them coming even before you can see them. The way a barrel leans a little more with every mile, the sharp creak that was not there yesterday, the sullen shift of a heavy sack that means it will slide if you hit one more rut. You keep a mental tally of all these dangers, and then every stop you make is a chance to tighten, adjust, patch, and pray. There is no help for you if something breaks. You work alone, always, unless someone is sent with you for a special job. You have no partner to share the blame, no friend to hand you a knot or hold a barrel while you secure it. Even if another slave rides with you, it is only to lift, never to share responsibility. If the load arrives safe, nobody thanks you. If it arrives damaged, everyone notices. You sometimes imagine what would happen if you let the load go just for a moment. If you allowed a barrel to roll off the back and burst in the dust, or if you watched a sack split open and pour out its contents, it would be chaos, shouts, blame, and pain. The overseer's stick, the master's rage, a week's worth of punishment for one careless moment. The thought tempts you only in the darkest corners of your mind, where nothing grows but quiet anger and slow resentment. Instead, you keep careful watch every second, every mile. You glance back so often your neck aches by midday. You count the barrels in your head, checking for the one that always seems ready to escape. You run your hand over every rope at every stop, tugging until your fingers are raw. You learn the difference between a good knot and a knot that looks good to someone who has never driven a wagon. You have become an expert in holding things together, both cargo and self. At the end of each trip, the inspection comes. The overseer walks around the wagon, poking, prodding, sometimes smirking when he finds nothing wrong. You got lucky this time, he'll say, as if luck is the only reason you did not fail. Sometimes the master himself will look over the cargo, counting every piece, feeling the sacks for weight, sniffing for leaks. You stand aside, hands folded, bracing yourself for the accusation that will come, whether you earned it or not. Every day, every mile, you keep watch over the cargo, not because it matters to you, but because it matters to them, and because your body is what pays for every loss. You are not trusted, but you are expected to be perfect. The cargo is never yours, but the punishment always is. You learn to hold the load steady, to keep your secrets, and to guard against the world's endless appetite for breaking things and people who cannot afford to be broken. You have heard white folks talk about a hard day's work as if it is something you can finish, something with a start and a stop, a line to cross before you can set your burdens down. For you, the workday is an endless thing. It does not end when the sun slips behind the trees. It does not end when your muscles give out or your back threatens to snap. The workday lasts as long as the master wants, as long as there are orders to fill, as long as there is light enough to see, sometimes longer. Your first task begins in the dark, and you already know that the last task will stretch well into the next darkness. Time is not measured by the clock for you. It is measured by the demands of others, by the shouts and whistles, by the sound of your own heart pounding in your ears, counting the seconds to the next command. You would laugh at the idea of a break, but laughter is dangerous, and you have forgotten what it sounds like anyway. You work as the sun climbs, casting long shadows behind the wagon, and then erasing them entirely when it hangs overhead, burning your neck and your hands. The heat presses down on you, making your every breath an effort. Sweat mixes with dust and flour and animal hair until you feel like a man made of mud stuck to the wagon seat. You wish for a cloud, for a breeze, for a moment of shade, but you do not get to wish. Wishes are a privilege, and you gave yours up a long time ago. The day's jobs pile up. After you deliver the barrels, there are sacks to fetch from the mill, crates to haul from the store, bundles of firewood to collect for the kitchen. You are told to hurry, but never to run. You are told to be careful, but never to slow down. The overseer's voice rides the wind, snapping at your heels, always finding a new way to call you lazy, stupid, slow, or useless. There are no breaks, only interruptions. If you stop to water the horses, you are wasting time. If you check the ropes, you are being nervous. If you pause to stretch a cramped leg or rub your eyes, someone will notice and someone will remember. You swallow your pain with every breath, ignoring the way your shoulders burn, your hands go numb, your head throbs from hunger and dehydration. Other men and women pass by in the fields, bent double over the cotton or the tobacco, moving like ghosts in the heat. You envy them their sameness, their steady, simple toil. Your work is always shifting, unpredictable, a string of errands tied together by the same tired animals and the same tired you. There is no pattern to find comfort in, only the promise of more to do as soon as you finish the last thing. Sometimes, at the end of a long run, the master remembers one more errand, a trip back to the big house for some forgotten parcel, a detour to pick up mail from the crossroads, a sudden order to haul a broken plow to the smith. You are not allowed to forget, but you must be ready for everyone else's forgetfulness. Each new job is greeted not with complaint, but with a silent nod, an extra step in your already endless march. The daylight fades, but the work does not. You find yourself straining to see, by the last scraps of sun, peering into the shadows for holes in the road, hoping not to miss a stone or a rut that might jolt the load loose. Sometimes the moon rises before you have a chance to rest, and you ride home by its thin, cold light, praying that nothing goes wrong in the darkness. Exhaustion is a constant companion. You feel it as a weight inside your bones, a whisper in your ears, a fog behind your eyes. You know that rest is not something you earn, but something that happens to you when your body gives out, when your mind slips away for a moment, and you wake with a jolt, afraid you have missed an order or a turn in the road. At the end of the workday, if it can be called that, you return to the yard, your body stiff, your thoughts sluggish, your hope wrung out like a dirty rag. There are still chores to do, unhitching the horses, checking the harness for wear, sweeping out the wagon bed, sometimes hauling water or helping another slave with his own unfinished tasks. The overseer is always there, counting every movement, looking for an excuse to stretch the day a little longer. You are not paid by the hour. You are not paid at all. Your reward for work is the chance to do it again tomorrow, the hope that you have avoided punishment today. The line between work and rest blurs until it disappears entirely, leaving only the long, aching hours and the knowledge that there will always be one more job waiting, one more mile to travel, one more piece of yourself to leave behind. When you finally stumble back to your cabin, the world outside is dark and still. Your body remembers every step, every lift, every word spoken to you like a curse. You close your eyes for a few precious hours, knowing that when you open them, the workday will already have begun again, whether you are ready or not. You spend most of your day alone, perched atop the wagon, separated from the field hands and the house workers by distance and by your work's peculiar kind of loneliness. But the world of slavery is always crowded, even when you ride alone. You share your days with dozens of others, men, women, children, who live and labor under the same unblinking eye. The contact you have with them is fleeting, careful, and stitched together by necessity, not comfort. Sometimes, early in the morning, you catch the tired faces of others as you leave the yard. Some nod to you, eyes half open, already sinking into themselves for the day's labor. Some say nothing at all, too wary of being seen loafing or talking when they ought to be working. You learn that every word spoken between slaves is weighed and measured, watched by the overseer, counted like stolen bread. Too much talking means you are plotting. Not enough means you are sullen. Either can get you in trouble, and trouble travels faster than your wagon. On the road, when you meet another driver, you exchange more with a look than with words. Sometimes there is a nod, a grunt, a quick question about the road ahead, that creek running high, or watch for the tree down by the bridge. These are not conversations. They are warnings, bits of advice handed off like smuggled contraband, offered in the hope that maybe someone else can avoid a little extra pain. You do not ask about their life, their troubles, their scars. You already know the answers because they are your answers too. Sometimes, if you pass a field where others are working, you wave, and if you are lucky, someone waves back. There is comfort in that small gesture, a kind of silent brotherhood in misery. The field hands see you moving and know you are not idle. You see them bent double over the rows and know you are not alone, but you cannot linger. The overseer's eyes are always looking for an excuse, and nothing is more suspicious than two slaves with too much to say. At the mill or the store, you might catch a moment with another slave sent on an errand. These meetings are brief and careful. A whispered greeting, a question about a family member on another plantation, a warning about a new overseer's temper. Sometimes you hear news. Someone ran away. Someone was sold. Someone was whipped for talking back. The news spreads like fire, warming you with the reminder that others feel what you feel, but also burning with the knowledge that nothing ever changes except for the worse. Contact with others is not always friendly. Competition for scraps, food, rest, The master's rare approval turns men against each other. Someone might try to shift a bit of blame for a broken wheel or snatch a handful of corn from your wagon when your back is turned. Suspicion grows in the cracks between kindness. You learn not to trust anyone too much, for survival makes even good men desperate. Still, there are moments, brief and fragile, when kindness slips through the cracks. Maybe a field hand tosses you an apple, half rotten but better than nothing. Maybe you help someone lift a sack too heavy for one set of arms, and they grunt a thanks that is worth more than money. Maybe you share a joke, whispered quick and low, about the master's ridiculous hat or the overseer's sour breath. These moments do not last, but they are precious, lifelines thrown across the endless ocean of labor. At night, back at the quarters, you might find yourself crowded around the same fire, sharing what little warmth and food you have. Conversation here is easier, but never entirely safe. There are ears everywhere. Some men are forced to spy, to report back in exchange for a lighter load or a rare favor. Some do it out of habit, because hope has been squeezed out of them, replaced by fear and hunger. You talk in riddles, in half truths, in whispers. You talk about the weather, about the animals, about dreams you do not really believe in anymore. You talk about the work, always the work. Sometimes, late at night, someone sings a song, soft and slow, a tune that weaves longing and sorrow into the darkness. For a moment, you all remember that you are human, even if the world refuses to see it. There are also arguments, flare ups born of exhaustion and anger, fights over nothing, over everything, a stolen piece of bread, a sharp word, a look that lasted too long. You know that these fights are not really about each other. They are about the weight you all carry, the helplessness that presses you flat, day after day. Despite the risk, despite the misery, contact with others is what keeps you going. You are not meant to have friends or family, not meant to trust or love, but you do anyway, in small, secret ways. A nod, a whispered word, a loaf split in half, a promise kept. These things are small rebellions, sparks of stubborn hope in a world built to stamp them out. As the night settles and the fire burns low, you lie down among the others, crowded together for warmth, your bodies and your spirits bruised by another endless day. You know that in the morning you will see these faces again, some tired, some angry, some already gone. The only certainty is that you are not alone in your suffering, and somehow that makes the burden just barely bearable. Fear is the shadow that never leaves your side. You carry it in your chest, feel it in your stomach, taste it in your mouth every time you draw breath. You wake with it, you work with it, you sleep with it, curling around your bones, pressing your teeth together so tightly you wake with a jaw ache and a tongue bitten through. If a day ever passes without fear, you know you must be dead. Punishment is never far away. It is not a last resort, not an accident, not the just consequence of a world built on fairness. It is a tool, a language, the air that moves the world around you. Everyone in the quarters carries scars. Some are fresh and red, welts still raised from the last lashing. Some are old and silvery, rope thick and ugly, as a reminder of what happens to the body when it is not treated as a body, but as a thing. You learn early what to fear: the overseer's stick, the master's voice gone quiet and cold, the look on a white face when it settles on you as if measuring your worth, your danger, your expendability. The punishments are as varied as they are cruel. For some, it is the whip, cracking over your back until your shirt is stuck to your skin with blood. For others, it is being made to stand in the sun for hours, arms out, legs shaking until you cannot feel your fingers. For some, it is hunger, your ration taken away for a day or more. For others, it is worse, being sent away, sold off, ripped from everyone you have ever known for reasons whispered but never explained. Most punishments are for things you could not help or did not do. A barrel breaks on the road. The wagon loses a wheel. A storm floods the crossing and makes you late. Someone's chickens go missing and you happen to be nearby. You know better than to protest, because protest is just another word for insolence, and insolence is punished harder than anything else. You become a master of swallowing your words, of hiding your face, of apologizing for things you did not do. Sometimes punishment is not about mistakes at all, but about keeping the fear alive. You have seen it. One man punished in front of everyone else, made an example so that everyone remembers their place. Sometimes you catch the overseer's eye and see a kind of satisfaction there, a pride in his work, as if hurting others is the only thing that gives his life meaning. You learn to avoid that eye, to make yourself smaller, to move quietly and quickly, always with your head down. You learn to anticipate moods. The master is more dangerous when he is angry, the overseer more cruel when he is bored. A bad night's sleep, a lost bet, a letter from a cousin, any of these can be a reason for someone in charge to take out their frustration on the nearest body, and that body is almost always yours. Fear does not make you safer. It only makes you more careful, more tired, more desperate to avoid notice. You learn to tie the knots just a little tighter, to double check the load, to smooth your face into an expression that says obedient without saying dead inside. You practice humility as a survival skill, not a virtue. There is no reward for standing tall, for speaking up, for meeting someone's eye with your own. Sometimes the fear gets so deep it shapes your dreams. You wake in a cold sweat, convinced you have forgotten something, left a gate open, spoken too loud, smiled at the wrong time. You rehearse apologies in your sleep. You flinch when someone calls your name. You learn to move quietly, to anticipate what will be asked of you before it is asked. You watch others, see how the fear bends their backs and muffles their laughter. You see it in the way a mother hushes her child, in the way an old man bites down on his tongue when the master passes. The fear is always present, a second skin you can never shed. It is a warning, a lesson, a curse. Sometimes, rarely, the fear gives way to something hotter, anger, or a kind of reckless hopelessness. You see it in someone who has had enough, who stops caring about punishment because there is nothing left to lose. Sometimes you hear of someone running away, disappearing into the night. The next morning, the punishments come down twice as hard on those left behind, as if to squeeze the hope out of the air itself. You know that the point of punishment is not just to hurt, but to remind you who owns your body, your time, your future, to remind everyone watching that mercy is not promised, that obedience is the only shelter, that no amount of hard work will ever buy your safety. You live in the grip of fear, and the only way to keep moving is to pretend you do not feel it. But it is always there, waiting, whispering, promising that tomorrow can be even worse than today, and that the world will not lift a finger to save you. There is no lunch bell for you, no shaded table set with plates and pitchers, no pause in the day when someone tells you to sit and fill your belly. Food is not a right, but a gamble, something to be snatched in passing, never enjoyed, rarely even tasted. Eating, for you, is just another chore, squeezed between harder chores, half swallowed on the move, with eyes on the road and ears straining for trouble. Your breakfast, if it can be called that, was gone before first light. A hard hunk of cornbread and a few gulps of thin, sour buttermilk, sometimes nothing at all. You chew fast, not because you are hungry, though you are always hungry, but because the work starts with or without you, and no one waits for a slave to finish a meal. The bread tastes like old sawdust, the buttermilk like it already missed its chance to be real milk. Still, you force it down. An empty stomach makes the hours twice as long, and you cannot afford to be any weaker than you already are. Once you are out on the road, the idea of a proper meal becomes a joke, one of those jokes nobody dares to laugh at. If you packed anything at all, it is tucked under the wagon seat or in a pocket. Maybe a chunk of bacon rind, a boiled sweet potato, a handful of cold beans from last night's supper. You guard it the way a banker guards his gold. You have seen hungry boys snatch food out of an open hand, have watched the desperate risk a whipping for a taste of something better. Hunger makes thieves of good people, and you have lived with hunger long enough to know it never really goes away. You time your bites between bumps in the road, chewing with one eye on the horses, the other on the cargo, always listening for the overseer's voice or the snap of a twig that means trouble. If you are lucky, you can swallow a few mouthfuls while the horses drink at a creek. If you are not lucky, you eat on your feet, walking beside the wagon, trying not to drop anything in the dirt. Food tastes like work, like fear, like a memory of comfort, so distant it might as well belong to someone else. Sometimes, in the rare quiet of midday, you let yourself imagine a real meal, meat so tender you could pull it apart with your fingers, biscuits hot from the oven, beans cooked soft and sweet, a slice of pie so rich you would save every crumb. You have watched the master's family eat, seen the silver, the white linen, the fat glistening on their lips as they take their time. You know those meals are not for you. You know your food is measured not in taste, but in calories, in how many hours of work it will fuel, in how long it will keep you upright and obedient. There are days when there is nothing at all, a missed ration, a bad harvest, a punishment handed out in the kitchen as well as in the field. You learn to trick your body, telling it to be satisfied with water, with hope, with nothing. You grow thin but hard, your belly a knot of want that you carry everywhere. You learn to chew slow when you can, to make the smallest scrap last as long as possible, to savor the rare sweetness of an apple core or a lick of molasses left in a jar. You see the hunger in others too, in the hollow cheeks, the thin wrists, the way children lick crumbs off the floor and women save the best bits for the smallest mouths. You are not alone in your hunger. Misery is a feast that is always shared, never finished. You never eat with your hands clean. There is always dust, grease, the smell of animals, and the taste of metal. Your hands are cracked and stained, your nails rimmed with dirt, but you are too hungry to care. You have seen men eat with blood on their fingers, with sweat running into their mouths, with tears that taste saltier than anything the cook ever served. Sometimes you trade for food, a favor for a bit of bread, a quiet warning about the overseer's route in exchange for a cup of beans. Sometimes you are forced to steal, quick and careful, hoping the risk is worth it, that you will not be caught and made an example for everyone else. You do not think of it as theft. You think of it as survival, as justice, as a tax paid to hunger itself. At the end of the day, if you are lucky, you might get another piece of bread, another swallow of something thin and warm. You eat in silence, alone, or in the company of others too tired to talk, too beaten to care. You fall asleep with hunger humming in your veins, a lullaby you know by heart. Food is not pleasure. Food is not comfort. Food is fuel, punishment, reward, and sometimes, when you can close your eyes and pretend, food is hope, a hope that tomorrow will bring more than a mouthful, that one day you will eat with both hands free and no fear of losing anything but your hunger. You do not need to watch the sky to know when bad weather is coming. Your bones tell you long before the clouds roll in, aching in the joints, warning you in the language of pain. But it makes no difference if you know. Rain or shine, hot or cold, the wagon must go out. The work waits for no season and respects no man's misery. The weather is not an excuse, only another enemy, as relentless as the overseer and twice as uncaring. When the rain falls, it does not tap gently at the roof or bring relief to parched fields. It comes down in sheets, soaking everything, your shirt, your skin, the sack of flour hidden under a tarp that leaks at every seam. Mud rises in the road like a new kind of crop, hungry for wheels and shoes and dignity. The horses slip, fighting for footing with every step, and you fight with them, your hands numb and raw on the reins. There is no such thing as staying dry. The water finds every gap, trickles down your neck, pools in your boots until your toes wrinkle and freeze. The cargo grows twice as heavy when it is wet, and every barrel becomes a risk. One more thing that might slip, or crack, or burst open, leaking precious dollars into the dirt. The master will count the loss in his ledger, but you will pay for it on your back. The cold is a special kind of punishment. You feel it in the morning, sharp as a knife, as you harness the horses in darkness that never seems to lift. Your breath turns to smoke, your fingers stiffen, and you curse the day you were born with hands meant for work instead of pockets meant for warmth. The wind sneaks through every layer of clothing, mocking your efforts to stay warm with rags and hope. If the wagon breaks down in the cold, you know you will have to fix it with numb hands, your teeth chattering, cursing under your breath with every frozen bolt and stubborn wheel. Heat is just as cruel. The sun bakes the road into a rutted griddle, the dust rising in clouds that cling to your throat and sting your eyes. The sweat runs down your back, pooling at your waist, turning every scrap of clothing into a second, heavier skin. You watch the horses for signs of heat stroke, foaming at the mouth, trembling legs, eyes gone wild with panic. You are supposed to keep moving, no matter how the heat tries to slow you, and so you do, feeling your heart pound in your chest like it wants to escape. Storms are the worst. Lightning forks across the sky, thunder rattles the wagon, and every shadow seems to move with the promise of disaster. You have driven through hail that left bruises on your arms, through winds that snapped branches like twigs and threatened to flip the wagon over in the ditch. You have watched the water rise over the wheels, felt the road wash away beneath you, and prayed, though you are not sure who might be listening, that the bridge would hold, that the load would not tumble into the swollen river. There is no rest from the weather. Even when you make it to your destination, you are expected to unload and reload in the same rain, the same cold, the same sun that has already stripped you raw. The overseer does not care that your shirt is plastered to your skin, that your hands are blue, that your feet squelch with every step. Hurry up, you are not made of sugar. You will not melt. As if only the weak and the lazy complain about what the sky sends down. You have learned to work wet, to work cold, to work with sweat running into your eyes and mud sucking at your boots. You have learned to live with the chafing of wet fabric, the sting of sunburn, the endless bone deep ache that comes from never being able to get warm or dry. You have learned not to hope for good weather, only to prepare for the worst and survive what comes. At night, you peel off your wet shirt and hang it by the fire, knowing it will never really dry before morning. Your skin is raw, your feet blistered, your back aching in new and inventive ways. You dream of places where rain means rest, where snow means fires and blankets, where heat means shelter and cool water in a glass. But these dreams are not for you. Your world is ruled by weather and by the men who use it as another way to measure your suffering. You fall asleep listening to the wind howl through the cracks in the wall, knowing tomorrow could bring more rain, more sun, more cold. Another day of doing what must be done, no matter what the sky decides. Weather is not your friend. It is not even a foe you can fight. It is simply another master, one that cannot be pleased, cannot be reasoned with, and cannot be escaped. If the weather is one enemy, strangers on the road are another, just as unpredictable and twice as dangerous. You know to fear the unknown shapes that appear along your route. A figure by the crossroads, a horseman watching from the shadows, a group of men on foot with nothing better to do than notice you. Every stranger is a question you cannot answer, a test you cannot prepare for. Some strangers ignore you, and you are grateful for that. You lower your eyes, tighten your grip on the reins, and hope to pass invisible, a shadow driving shadows, too poor to rob, too dirty to insult. But more often, a stranger's interest is the worst thing that can happen to you. Sometimes it is simple curiosity, a man with too much time and too little kindness, wanting to know who you belong to, what you are carrying, where you are going, how quickly you will answer yes, sir, or no, sir. You have learned never to be too quick or too slow with your replies. Too quick, and they say you are impertinent, hiding something, not showing proper respect. Too slow, and they say you are stupid, sullen, or plotting. Your whole life is measured in the space between their questions and your answers. You keep your eyes down, your voice low, your manner as flat as water. You know the lines by heart. Yes, sir. No, sir. I do not know, sir. Just running the master's errands, sir. Some men, bored or drunk or simply cruel, find pleasure in seeing if they can make you nervous. They lean close, breathe whiskey in your face, poke at your cargo with the tip of a stick or the butt of a gun. They make jokes you do not dare to laugh at, ask questions that have no good answer. You have seen them throw things at drivers like you, just to see a man flinch, just to remind you of your place. Worst of all are those who look for a reason to cause trouble, a sack that looks a little too full, a barrel that smells just a bit off, a glance they take as disrespect. Anything can be enough. You know stories of drivers dragged from their wagons, whipped in the dust at the side of the road for imagined crimes. You know stories of men accused of theft because they could not prove who owned a single bag of flour. You know stories of bodies found by the river, gone before anyone had time to ask their names. Sometimes it is not even men you fear. A group of boys, emboldened by the sight of someone who cannot strike back, might throw stones or spit or chase you down the road, laughing at the way you keep your head low and your hands tight on the reins. You have seen young men who become overseers with age, already learning how to wound with words and blows, already learning that the world is theirs and you are nothing but an obstacle or an amusement. Then there are the slave catchers, always hungry for runaways, always eager to prove their worth by questioning, by searching, by dragging a man back to a master who will pay for his return. You keep your papers, if you have any, folded and hidden, but you know they may not matter. Papers can be lost, ignored, torn up on a whim. In their eyes, your very presence on the road is a challenge, a chance for violence disguised as law. Not all the strangers are white. Sometimes you see other enslaved people moving alone, their eyes wide and wary, their steps quick. You do not stop to talk. To be seen together is to invite suspicion, to risk more than either of you can afford. At best, you might pass a warning with your eyes, a silent message of caution, of shared fear. There are other dangers too: escaped convicts, bandits, desperate men hiding in the woods. You do not blame anyone for trying to escape, but you know they can be as dangerous as anyone else if it means buying their own safety. Trust is a luxury you cannot afford. Every mile brings the possibility of another encounter, another risk, another demand for proof or humility, or both. You have learned to make yourself small, to become part of the wagon, part of the dust, nothing to notice or remember. When you see someone ahead, you slow the horses, look for a place to turn if you can, keep your mind racing with what you will say and do if you are stopped. You pray for empty roads, for days when the only voices you hear are your own and your horses, for routes that carry you through empty fields and silent woods. You would rather face mud and rain than the unpredictable trouble of a stranger's attention. You know that at the end of the day, whether you return whole or broken, the story will be the same. Nobody will care what happened except you, and any mistake, any insult, any injury will be yours alone to pay for. The dangers of passing strangers are always waiting, hidden just out of sight, ready to turn the day from hard to unbearable with a single word or a single glance. If the day belongs to exhaustion and fear, the night belongs to uncertainty and dread. You might think that when the sun sets and the fields go dark, your labor ends and rest begins. But you would be wrong. Night brings no mercy to a slave, especially not to a driver like you. The work continues, often heavier and more dangerous, hidden by shadows, made worse by fatigue. Sometimes the master's errands run late, or a delivery must be made after dark. Sometimes the river crossing takes longer than planned, or a broken wheel costs you hours of daylight. The overseer does not care about excuses. He stands at the gate, tapping his stick, counting the moments until you return. If you are late, his patience is worn thin. If you are early, he finds another task to fill the empty time. There is no reward for finishing quickly, just a longer list of things to do before you can crawl into bed. Driving at night is a different kind of torture. The road you know by heart during the day turns into a maze of shadows and hidden dangers. The moon is stingy with its light, and the stars, though beautiful to someone with the freedom to notice them, do nothing to guide your way. You steer by instinct, praying that the ruts and stones you memorized in daylight have not changed with the night. Every tree stump looks like a crouching man. Every flicker of movement in the dark could be animal, stranger, or something worse. Your cargo is twice as risky at night. The ropes seem to slip looser, the barrels creak louder, and every jolt of the wagon feels like an omen. You climb down more often to check your load, running your hands over wet wood, tying knots by touch alone. You curse under your breath and hope no one is close enough to hear. If you lose something at night, you might not find it until morning, if at all, and the overseer's sick will find you instead. The horses do not like the dark. They snort and shy, their ears flicking at every sound. Sometimes, when the wind blows just right, you hear coyotes singing, their cries rising in the distance, reminding you that even the animals are freer than you. You whisper to your horses, trying to keep them calm. They trust you because you are as trapped as they are, but trust does not make the darkness any less frightening. Occasionally, you are ordered to deliver or collect people in the night, a field hand sent to another plantation, a house servant returned from an errand, or, on rare and miserable occasions, someone to be punished away from the eyes of the others. You feel the weight of these journeys in your soul, knowing you are just a tool in the Master's hand, another shadow moving shadows through the night. When you finally return, the chores are not finished. The wagon must be emptied and cleaned, the horses rubbed down and fed. You check the harness for wear, patching it if you can, because the morning will bring another journey, and there is never enough time to rest. Sometimes you haul water for the kitchen or help another slave finish his own work, because kindness, rare and dangerous, is sometimes all you have left to offer. The night air chills your bones, but you cannot shiver. The overseer may be watching, and shivering is just another sign of weakness, another excuse for a lecture or a blow. You keep your shoulders square, your eyes lowered, your words few. If there is any comfort to be found, it is in the brief moments when the overseer's back is turned and you can steal a breath of air without fear. Sometimes, when all the work is done and you finally reach your cabin, you collapse on your pallet without even undressing. Your body is too tired to care about dirt or sweat, too numb to notice the straw poking through the threadbare blanket. The day's aches are a dull, familiar song, joined by the sharper pain of worry. Did you forget something? Will you be blamed for something you did not do? Will the morning bring another punishment for a mistake you have not yet made? Sleep comes slowly, if it comes at all. The night outside is full of noises, the distant bark of a dog, the groan of the wind, the soft voices of others in the quarters. You listen to these sounds, letting them blend together, hoping they will drown out your thoughts. Sometimes you dream, but even your dreams are haunted by the day's work, by the faces of men who hold your life in their hands, by the weight of another day waiting on the other side of dawn. Nighttime does not bring peace. It brings a different kind of labor, a deeper kind of fear. You endure it because you must, because there is no other choice, because the world of the enslaved is built on surviving 1 hour at a time, until there is nothing left but the promise of another night, and another, and another. You spend all day worrying about what could go wrong, but nothing is quite so nerve-wracking as the moment you finally reach your destination and must submit your wagon for inspection. You know before you arrive that every flaw, every scrape, every stain will be seen as your fault. It does not matter how hard you worked, how careful you were, or how many accidents could not be helped. In the end, all that matters is what is missing, what is damaged, what is not perfect. As you roll into the yard, be it a mill, a storehouse, another plantation, or even just the master's big house, someone is always waiting. Sometimes it is a white man in a fine coat, sometimes an overseer with a clipboard, sometimes a shopkeeper with a sharp tongue. They all have the same look in their eye: suspicion, impatience, a hunger to find a mistake. It is as if they can smell your fear, and it makes them bold. You bring the wagon to a stop, dust rising around the wheels, and wait for the command to begin unloading. Your hands are stiff and your back aches, but you do not show it. You cannot afford to look tired. You climb down slowly, careful not to stumble, careful not to let a barrel roll, careful with every movement, as if you are made of glass. The horses stand quietly, knowing as well as you do that this is no time for foolishness. The inspection begins with counting. Every barrel, every sack, every bundle is tallied and checked. If there is flour, they weigh it. If there is molasses, they look for leaks. If there are tools, they make sure none are missing. They never take your word for anything. Even if you had a list, even if you remembered every piece by heart, it would not matter. The only thing that matters is what they see and what they decide. You watch, hands folded, heart pounding in your chest. Every thump feels like a hammer blow, every breath tight and shallow. If something is missing, the accusations begin at once. Did you steal it? Did you sell it? Did you lose it? You are guilty by default. If the load is damaged, you are blamed for carelessness or incompetence. You try to explain about the mud, the rain, the road, but explanations are just another excuse to be dismissed or punished. There is never any privacy during inspection. Other slaves are often there, working alongside you, unloading the wagon, passing barrels hand to hand. They do not look at you. They have learned not to, because sympathy is dangerous and friendship more so. The overseer stands by, arms crossed, ready to jump in if you so much as flinch. He enjoys these moments, the little displays of power, the chance to remind you that your labor does not end until he says so. Sometimes you get lucky and everything is accounted for. Nothing is broken, nothing is missing. Even then, nobody praises you. You did your job, they might grunt, as if that is something barely worth noticing. If there is the slightest mistake, a ripped sack, a barrel with a loose plug, you pay for it with more than words. A cuff to the head, a threat of the whip, a promise that next time you will be watched even closer. The worst is when the cargo is meant for the big house, where the master or his family will inspect it themselves. They walk around the wagon with an air of disgust, as if your presence alone might dirty their fine goods. They find fault with everything: the smell, the weight, the way you have tied a knot. The mistress might wrinkle her nose and complain about a smudge on a flour sack, never imagining that your own shirt has not been clean in years. The children might poke and prod, laughing as if your suffering is a joke for their entertainment. Sometimes, if the cargo includes something alive, chickens, pigs, even another person, you feel the tension ratchet even higher. A lost animal is a day's wages gone. A hurt slave is a loss that means punishment for everyone involved. You are careful, so careful, but care does not always save you. Once the inspection is done, you are not free. There is still the unloading, the hauling, the endless trips back and forth from the wagon to wherever the cargo must go. Your muscles shake, but you do not slow down. The overseer watches for any sign of slacking, eager to remind you that the day is not over until he says so. When the last sack is stacked, the last barrel rolled into place, you finally get the nod to leave. You climb back onto the wagon, feeling lighter in body but heavier in spirit. The horses sense your mood, moving a little slower, a little more cautiously. You know that for every safe delivery, there are a dozen ways to fail, and each failure costs you more than anyone else. You roll away from the inspection yard, eyes fixed on the road ahead, already dreading the next time you will be judged for things you cannot control. You would think that after the inspection is over and the cargo has been unloaded, your work would be finished. But there is always a return journey waiting for you, a slow, grinding trek back to the plantation, back to the starting point, back to whatever punishments or chores are still left. The road home is never a relief. It is only a reminder that rest is not yours to claim. Your body aches in new and old ways. Every joint feels too loose, your muscles too tight, your hands stiff and swollen around the reins. You are so tired it seems impossible to keep your head up, yet you cannot let yourself slump or slow. The overseer or the master could be watching, or a neighbor might mention later that you looked lazy, and word will find its way back. The only thing more dangerous than being late is being seen as careless, so you force your body upright every mile, an act of will. The road seems longer on the way back. The sun is sinking, stretching your shadow out before you, as if it means to drag you down into the dust. The horses are as tired as you, heads lowered, their plodding steps heavy and slow. Sometimes you speak to them, not because they understand, but because it is the only voice you dare to use. Almost home, old girl. Almost done, boy. The words taste hollow in your mouth. You both know that home is just another word for another set of chores, another inspection, another round of orders you did not ask for. Every rut in the road jars your bones. Every bump threatens to spill what little hope you have left. There is no cargo to worry about now, but the wagon still groans and creaks, its empty bed a sharp reminder that your labor is valued only for what it carries, not for your sweat, not for your time, and certainly not for your pain. Your mind drifts on the return journey, wandering in circles. You replay the day's events, searching for mistakes, for things you might have done differently. Did you tie that last rope tight enough? Did you speak too quickly, move too slowly? You worry about tomorrow before you are even done with today. The road offers no comfort, only time to pick at your own wounds, physical and otherwise. Sometimes, on the way back, you see the world changing around you, the sky darkening, the woods filling with shadows, the air turning colder. You might pass other wagons heading in the opposite direction, other drivers hunched in exhaustion. Sometimes you see field hands trudging back from the rows, their faces blank with fatigue, their bodies swaying as if the ground itself is pulling them down. You all move through the world like ghosts, half seen, half heard, burdened by things you cannot name. Hunger gnaws at you, sharper than before. If you packed anything for the trip home, it is gone by now, eaten quickly and without taste. Your stomach growls, and your head feels light. There is water in the creeks, but you do not stop unless you must. Every delay feels dangerous. Every moment wasted another mark against your name. There are times when despair comes quietly, settling over you like the dust. It is not loud or angry. It is a slow, dull ache, a numbness that makes the world seem far away. You wonder if the day will ever end, if any day will ever be different. You try not to let it show, because you know despair is a luxury, one you cannot afford. The world will not pause for your sadness. It will only punish you for it. The worst part of the return journey is knowing that nothing you do will ever be enough. No matter how hard you work, how careful you are, how quickly you finish, there is always another job waiting, another fault to be found. You are measured by your failures, never your successes. You begin to believe what they say about you, that you are lazy, that you are slow, that you are less than human. The words sink in, settling where hope used to live. As you finally approach the plantation, the lights of the big house flicker in the distance. The day is almost done, but you are not finished. The overseer waits to see how quickly you unhitch the horses, how well you clean the wagon, how ready you are to start the next task. There is no finish line, only another beginning. You roll through the gate, the wagon groaning its last complaint. You slide from the seat, legs trembling, hands barely strong enough to hold the harness. You do what needs doing because you must, because you always have, because there is no choice but to keep going, even when there is nothing left to give. Night falls heavy around you. The return journey is over, but the exhaustion and despair remain, stitched into your bones, waiting to wake with you at dawn and ride beside you every mile. There is a cruel end of arithmetic to your day. The more miles you travel, the more things break. By the time you return from your journey, the wagon is a catalog of small disasters: loose bolts, bent axles, cracked spokes, ropes that look as tired as you feel. The master expects everything to be ready for the next trip, no matter how battered or worn it might be. If the wagon breaks down tomorrow, the blame will land on your back, not on the wood or the weather. Repairs are your responsibility, always. You have never been trained as a carpenter or a blacksmith, but you have become one anyway, through trial and error and the urgency of survival. The barn is your workshop, your hands the only tools you can trust. Nails are precious, but so is time, and you cannot afford to waste either. You work by habit and memory, eyes squinting in the dusk, fingers numb from cold or overuse. You start with the wheels, because a wagon without wheels is just a coffin on its side. You run your hand along the rim, feeling for splinters and cracks. The wood is old, thirsty, always threatening to split. If you find a loose spoke, you wedge in a scrap of wood and hammer it tight, hoping it holds until the next journey. If a wheel wobbles, you tighten the bolts as best you can, gritting your teeth when the metal bites your skin. Next comes the undercarriage. You crawl beneath the wagon, the ground damp and cold against your belly. The axles creak with every turn, metal grinding against metal. You reach for the tin of grease, a mixture of animal fat and dirt, sticky and foul smelling, and smear it into every joint. You remember the first time you saw the blacksmith at work, the way his hands moved confidently, shaping hot iron as if it was clay. You have none of his skill, only the need to keep the wagon moving one more day. The harness and traces are worse. Leather straps fray and crack, chewed thin by rats and stretched thin by years of pulling. You patch them with whatever you can find, old rags, bits of rope, sometimes strips cut from your own shirt. The master will not buy new harness unless the old one snaps in half, and even then he curses the waste. You stitch by moonlight, your needle clumsy but determined, your stitches uneven but strong. Every repair is done in silence. You do not complain, do not curse loud enough for anyone to hear. Complaints are just another invitation for punishment. You work quickly, not because you believe it will earn you praise, but because you know there is no rest until everything is ready. The overseer might come by, lantern swinging, to check your progress. He finds fault with your work, always. That knot is sloppy. That bolt is loose. You call that fixed? You bow your head, mutter apologies, and do it again, even if it was fine the first time. Sometimes another slave is sent to help, but it is never true help. They hand you nails, hold the lantern, say nothing that could be used against either of you later. The silence is heavy, full of all the words you cannot say. How you wish the wagon would break for good. How you wish the master would drive it himself just once. How you wish for an end to all the fixing, all the patching, all the making do. Your hands are cut and stained, your knuckles raw. The smell of grease never leaves your skin. You become part of the wagon, a moving piece among other moving pieces, responsible for everything, but in control of nothing. When you are finally done, when every bolt is tight, every rope secured, every strap stitched, you step back and look at your work. It is never perfect, but it is enough. It has to be. You put away your tools, wipe your hands on your trousers, and hope that tomorrow nothing will break, in a way you cannot fix. The repairs do not buy you rest. They only buy you the chance to start the next day at a disadvantage that is somehow always your own fault. You know that even if you built a new wagon from the ground up, it would not matter. The work would find a way to wear it down, just as it wears you down, day after day, night after night. You stumble from the barn, the world blurry with fatigue, your head full of tasks unfinished and mistakes waiting to be made. There is no reward for keeping things together, only punishment when they finally fall apart. When the last tool is put away and the final check on the wagon is done, the darkness is thick and full. Your body aches for sleep, but you know better than to expect rest. Sleep, for you, is another part of survival, something you grasp at, not something you sink into. The quarters are already quiet when you finally drag yourself inside, and the others are bundles of shadow on the straw, their breaths slow and shallow, their bodies curled against the cold. You do not undress. You do not wash. There is no energy left for such luxuries. Sometimes you manage to kick off your boots. Sometimes you just collapse as you are, clothes stiff with sweat, mud, and work. Your bed is a thin blanket atop a scatter of straw, maybe a ragged pallet if you are lucky. You settle in carefully, avoiding the worst of the splinters and the sharp edges of your own bones. If you are very lucky, the aches in your joints will fade just enough to let you drift off. But even then, sleep is not peace. Your mind does not forget the day's misery just because the world outside has gone silent. The work follows you, haunting your dreams, replaying the mistakes you fear you made, the words you wish you could take back. Sometimes, in the dead of night, you wake with a jolt, heart pounding, sure you have forgotten something, the wheel left loose, the harness unpatched, a sack left behind. You reach for the reassurance of memory and find only worry waiting. The cabin is never truly dark. Slivers of moonlight slip through the cracks in the wall. The fire in the hearth is just a glow, not warmth, but a memory of warmth. And the air is thick with the smells of unwashed bodies, of grease and sweat, of smoke and old wood. You hear the quiet snores of others, the rustle of someone turning, the muted sob of a child whose hunger kept her awake. These are the lullabies of your world, not the gentle songs of comfort, but the evidence that you are not alone in your suffering. If it rains, the drop is drum on the roof and drip through holes, splashing onto your face, your feet, your thin blanket. In the cold, you huddle tighter, pressing your back to the nearest body, grateful for the borrowed heat, even as you wish for your own. In summer, you sweat through your sleep, twisting and turning to find a patch of air that is not heavy with the day's misery. The worst is when the nightmares come. Sometimes you dream of being chased down the road, the overseer's voice snapping at your heels, the master's cold eyes burning in the dark. Sometimes you dream you are still working, hauling barrels up endless hills, your arms and legs heavy as stone, your body refusing to obey. Sometimes you dream you are free, walking through a field with no end, no fence, no master calling your name. and the pain of waking up is sharp enough to leave you breathless. When you do sleep deeply, your body takes what it can, shutting out the world, if only for an hour or two. But rest is never complete. You wake sore, jaw clenched, fingers curled as if still gripping the reins or the hammer or the bucket. Your mouth is dry, your eyes sticky, your heart already anxious for the day ahead. You listen for the first sounds of morning, the creak of the gate, the murmur of voices, the sharp bark of the overseer, and you know it will not be long before you must rise and start again. Sometimes you envy those who seem able to sleep through anything. The old man snoring by the wall, the child who tosses but does not wake, the woman who hums herself into a stupor. But you know even their rest is borrowed, paid for with the same coins of exhaustion and fear. Nobody sleeps well here. Nobody wakes refreshed. There is no comfort to be found in sleep, only the barest relief from the world outside your eyelids. You cannot dream your way free. You cannot hide from the next morning. The weight of your life is waiting for you in the shadows, patient and certain, never leaving you alone for long. And so, each night, you practice the art of endurance, closing your eyes and letting yourself drift, hoping for a few precious minutes where the pain fades, the memories go quiet, and the world feels just a little less heavy. You take what you can, knowing that sleep is not for healing, but for surviving. When dawn finally comes, you rise with the others, your body stiff, your mind clouded, your soul no lighter than the day before. You look at your hands, at your boots, at the faint cracks in the cabin walls, and you begin again. Another day, another mile, another night's sleep without rest. By now, hope is a language you have almost forgotten. The days blur into each other, each one as gray and heavy as the last. You have lived so long under the weight of other people's demands and disappointments that your own dreams feel like stories you once overheard and can no longer remember in detail. Every new morning brings the same sounds, the same smells, the same ache in your bones, and the same certainty that nothing will change. Hopelessness is not a sudden thing. It creeps in slow, settling in the hollow places inside you, filling you up where pride and ambition used to live. It is not sharp or loud. It is a dull, constant ache, a numbness that seeps into everything. You feel it in the way your feet drag as you walk to the barn, in the way your hands hesitate before tying yet another knot, in the way you stare at the road ahead and see only miles of emptiness. Sometimes, in rare moments when your body is still and your mind is less busy with worry, you wonder if this is what it means to be broken. Not to shout, not to fight, not to cry, but simply to surrender, to stop expecting anything better, to let the world roll over you without even trying to stand up. There are men and women around you who seem to have reached this place already. Their faces are blank, their eyes turned inward, their voices low and flat. They do what they are told, no more, no less, moving through their days like ghosts. You recognize that look because you feel it on your own face. There is no victory here, no small rebellion that can bring relief. The overseer's stick, the master's voice, the endless parade of chores and punishments, these things have worked on you the way water works on stone, not by force, but by persistence, grinding you down until even your complaints have worn away. On especially hard days, when the sun refuses to rise or the rain will not stop, or your body is simply too tired to fight, despair comes for you like an old friend. It whispers that the world will always be like this, that your work will never matter, that your suffering is invisible to everyone who could do something about it. You find yourself moving more slowly, your steps heavy, your voice small. You wonder how many days you can survive like this. You wonder if it matters. Despair is dangerous, not because it hurts, but because it makes you careless. You forget to double check the knots, to watch the horses closely, to scan the road for trouble. You find yourself thinking, just for a second, that maybe it would not be so bad if something broke, if something went wrong, if you got caught doing less than you should. Punishment feels almost preferable to the endless sameness. At least it would be different. Yet, even in despair, the world does not let you rest. There are others who depend on you, however little you have to offer. Maybe a friend in the quarters who needs a kind word. Maybe an old man too frail to lift a bucket. Maybe a child who looks up at you and still expects something from the future. You feel the weight of their expectations, their small hopes, and you are ashamed that you have none left to share. At night, lying on your pallet, you let yourself remember how it once felt to believe in something. Maybe you dreamed of running away, of buying your freedom, of seeing the world beyond the fields and the fences. Maybe you believed that hard work would earn you kindness, that patience would be rewarded, that the master might someday see your humanity. Now, those thoughts seem foolish, like fairy tales told to comfort children. You know better. You know the world is not interested in your dreams. Sometimes you catch yourself wishing for an end, not for escape, not for rescue, but just for it all to stop, to lie down in the dust and let the road cover you, to fall asleep and never wake, to disappear so quietly that no one would even notice you were gone. It is not that you want to die exactly. You just cannot imagine living like this forever. And yet the next morning, you get up, you tie the harness, load the wagon, greet the horses, nod to the others in the yard. You do it not because you believe things will get better, but because you cannot imagine what else to do. Survival is a habit, a reflex, a rhythm that continues even when the melody is lost. Despair does not end you. It simply becomes the background noise of your life, a low hum that reminds you nothing will ever be enough, that you are only here to carry other people's burdens until you are too broken to carry them anymore. You do not hope, you endure, and for the world you live in, that is enough. When the day is finally done, the night heavy on your skin and your body too sore to move, there is nothing left but the slow, grinding machinery of your own thoughts. You do not have the luxury of looking ahead. The future is not something promised to you, not even something that belongs to you. It is a mist, a rumor, a far off land that you are never meant to see. But sometimes, lying awake on your pallet, you cannot help but imagine it, if only to remind yourself what it feels like to want. You think about what tomorrow holds, and it is always the same. Another sunrise, another command, another endless road stretching out in front of you. You know exactly how every day will begin and how every day will end, and in between, there will be the same hunger, the same pain, the same foe that you might do something wrong without even knowing it. You think about growing older, slower, more broken. You wonder how many years you can keep pushing this wagon, how many miles are left in your legs before they give out and someone younger takes your place. Sometimes you catch yourself thinking further ahead, against all reason, against the weight of every lesson you have ever learned. You think about a day when there might be no overseer, no master, no whip waiting in the corner of your vision. You wonder what you would do with yourself if nobody told you where to go, what to carry, how to move. Would you still wake before dawn? Would you walk the roads just to see where they lead, or would you stay put, letting your feet finally rest? But even these thoughts are dangerous. They are a kind of poison, a quiet rebellion that can only end in disappointment or worse. You have seen what happens to men and women who let themselves hope out loud, who talk about running, about fighting, about a freedom that nobody has ever really seen. The world punishes hope as quickly as it punishes mistakes. You keep your dreams silent, buried deep, where even you can barely reach them. There are times when the other slaves talk quietly in the darkness about places they have heard of, far away, where people live free and nobody owns their body. Sometimes someone remembers a bit of news, a rumor of war or unrest, or a story of a runaway who made it north. These stories flicker in the gloom, little sparks that die as soon as they are spoken. The next morning, nothing has changed. The field is still waiting, the wagon is still heavy, the day is just as long. You try to imagine a future for the children. Maybe you think they will be the ones to see something different. Maybe they will not have to live every hour in fear. Maybe they will get to rest when they are tired, to eat when they are hungry, to love whom they want, to wake without dread. But you do not let yourself believe it for long. Even these wishes feel like a kind of theft, taking from the world something it is determined to deny. Sometimes you wonder if the future is just the same road, unspooling forever, your footsteps already written in the dust, every mile the same as the last. You cannot imagine retirement, or relief, or recognition for the work you have done. You will simply keep going until you cannot, and then the world will move on without you, as if you were never there at all. You are not building toward anything. There will be no reward, no end, no moment when you can say you have finally arrived. The only future that belongs to you is the one you can hold in your hands for a moment, a brief rest, a stolen bite of food, the rare kindness of another's voice at the end of a long day. You find comfort where you can, in the small things, knowing they might be all you ever have. As you lie awake, staring at the darkness, you realize that the only thing you truly own is your endurance. The future does not exist, not for people like you, but the present, harsh and narrow and unending, is yours to survive. And somehow, that knowledge carries you through another night, another day, another mile down the road that never ends. You close your eyes, bracing yourself for another morning, knowing that you will rise again because you must, because you always have, because it is the only future left to you.